This episode of NBC5 In Depth is all about what strengthens pride of place in Vermont, starting with the big boost the state received from being in the path of totality of this month's solar eclipse. We're still waiting on economic impact numbers, but Vermont's tourism commissioner says it was clearly a huge win all around.
Actually, the whole state should be proud to say that I think it went as well as we could possibly have imagined. We had as good weather forecast for the day as we could have hoped for. Everybody was relatively well behaved. It was an amazing event. To say it was inspiring is really kind of putting it mildly. So it was a wonderful day. It was a wonderful day for Vermont to shine and show what we can offer to visitors. And I think it was just such a special experience for residents too. I think there may have been some skeptics out there as to, what is this total eclipse really going to be all about? And I think we all might be converts now.
It also was a day that showed us how important tourism is to the state of Vermont.
That is no doubt. It will be some time until we have exact numbers on what the economic impact was, but we are hearing reports from folks who will say, I made as much in 3 days, twice as much in 3 days as I usually make in the whole month of April. So these are big numbers that we're hearing. They are anecdotes at this point. But especially coming in April is a really tough time of year, not just for tourism and hospitality businesses, but it can just be a slow time of year. So having that economic boost was really more than, or as much as we could ever have hoped for. And and we've been through some tough times, over the last years. So this was a real positive shot in the arm economic boost for everybody.
And it was an economic boost that had a huge swath.
Yeah, that was something that was really special about the total solar eclipse, was that it was very decentralized, so you didn't have to be in any one particular part of the state. Yes, the path to totality was in the northern part of the state, but in a place like the Northeast Kingdom, what we're hearing out of communities like St. Johnsbury and Newport, both of those communities actually were, quote unquote, full on the day of. We're hearing reports of about 10 to 12,000 people were in St. Johnsbury. That is an amazing outcome for that community. Events were sold out, and again, for the economics of it, being able, businesses actually did take some of the advice we tried to offer us to stay open on a Sunday and a Monday, even if you hadn't already. And we're hearing that people they basically made their year. And I think it also kind of showed folks that we have so much to offer, and sometimes we can take that for granted. I know specifically in the Northeast Kingdom, there were visitors who came who might have been planning to go to St. Albans or to Burlington and decided maybe this is the fastest way. They ended up in St. Johnsbury and they absolutely loved it. Folks that were in our drive market who you'd say, you only live a couple hours away, how come you haven't been here before? But we saw a lot of that of people who are coming to Vermont for the first time or coming to a particular community for the first time, and really being pleased with not only the welcome that they were given, but all that they found to do and to enjoy.
Vermont won't see another total solar eclipse anytime soon. But did this event provide lessons learned that could be transferred to other major events that happen in our state?
I do think so. We have developed networks between the state and local communities with all the different partners. We were able to really lean on those networks in preparing for this event. I think it's one of the reasons why things went really well. In leading up to the eclipse, yes, we had a great opportunity to really think about the event from the transportation perspective, from the public safety perspective, and from the tourism perspective. One of the things that we were able to do is we were gathering all the information we could on different events that were happening throughout the state. That our events calendar and the map that created then became a resource for public safety and Vermont Emergency Management to think about where we might need to deploy resources depending on the types of visitation that we were expecting. We were also able to work with our partners on the municipal level and work with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns so that municipal officials had an idea what to expect. This is what can happen. It's a great economic boost to especially rural communities when folks are coming here for outdoor recreation and so forth. And I would say it's also been a really nice psychological boost, both for our business community and I think for residents as well.
Was it all upside, or was there also the risk of some downsides? What I mean by that is, Boy, that traffic leaving Vermont was pretty nightmarish in some cases. 8 hours, I heard a story, to get from Stowe to Boston. That's some pretty intense traffic jams. The pricing was astronomical for hotels in the Burlington area, for example. Does something like that run the risk of turning off a consumer?
Perhaps it has the potential, but that's not what we're hearing on the ground. I mean, I think that, dynamic pricing, yes, rooms were expensive, but if you compare them to peak fall foliage, they're not as expensive as they were if you're just looking year over year, April to April. And I think the traffic, yes, I'm for one, I'm glad that I didn't have to sit in my car for 8 hours. But I think that on one hand, folks were prepared. We had sort of set the expectation that they would be in traffic, and so it wasn't a surprise. And that's not the type of extenuating circumstances that we're going to repeat. So when we think about visitation going forward, that's not something that you would expect. If you come to Vermont for the weekend, it's okay. You're not going to spend 8 hours getting home again next time around.
How do you and your colleagues at the Department of Tourism and Marketing keep this positive energy moving forward in the months ahead? How will you be messaging?
We have a great opportunity. I mean, we talk about, brand lift or, brand associations. We now have, upwards of 160,000 people who came to Vermont to see this amazing event, and they are leaving with that very positive association of Vermont in their heads. So we will be continuing to communicate with them. We're doing some surveys to folks and see maybe what surprised them about Vermont that will help us learn, what we can offer folks in the future. Maybe we can't offer them another total solar eclipse, but we can get, we're always looking to get to understand our visitors better. And just in general, just reminding folks that you had a great time in Vermont for the eclipse, or just Vermont is here. Tourism exists in a very competitive market. We know it's the best place on earth, but there are other places who think they have as much to offer, and so we just have to continue to remind people what they can experience when they come to visit to Vermont, and internally knowing what a huge impact that has on our communities.
I wanted to ask you about some other good tourism news we had recently. That was from the ski areas, who said that despite some challenges from the weather early in the season, that they're reporting a really strong season, boosted by both some late season snowfall and by the extra visitors for the eclipse. What does that say to you, that even in this challenging weather situation that we had in December and January, that they could still report very strong visitation?
The weather is never guaranteed. The nice thing is that when the weather's challenging and early in the season, there's been so many advances in snowmaking and other technologies that we can still provide a good skiing and riding experience relatively consistently. But there's no doubt that all of that natural snowfall coming in March was just an amazing gift to all of us. It's great snow to ski on. It's a wonderful time to ski in the spring. And I think just, seeing those images of a great powder run really gets people enthusiastic all over again. Again, couldn't have come at a better time. Will be really interesting to see how the numbers actually end up for the total season.
Also looking forward to future visits. We're coming into the summer months. Are you hearing encouraging things about summer visitation?
Post-pandemic, people want to connect with their friends and family. They want to do things outside. They want to take that time for themselves. So we're still seeing the effects of that linger. We are always getting the word out as to what Vermont has to offer. Early bookings are strong. We have a lot of great, events to look forward to. And it's just an amazing time of year. So the more that we can continue to remind people that, if they have a choice of someplace to spend their time, please come to Vermont. You won't be sorry.
One of the things about the eclipse that I most liked is that it turned all of us who live here into representatives of the Department of Tourism and Marketing in some way, shape, or form. I was getting texts from my friends who were visiting from out of state. Hey, where's a good place to try to get a bite to eat? That kind of phenomenon that I experienced, we could all be doing that all the time to be putting a good face on our state.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that we talk about when we think about tourism, we think about the Vermont brand, is I like to remind people that we are all part of the Vermont brand. So if you think about a brand as a set of experiences, so when people come to Vermont, everybody they meet is part of that set of experiences. So as residents, as well as hospitality professionals, outdoor recreation providers, cultural arts organizations, any experience people have, the people that we all meet along the way become part of that collective memory. And so when you think about the eclipse, the fact that, what we're hearing by and large is pretty much all positive in terms of the not only the experience that people have, but the welcome that they received. I hope that reinforces that notion in both, our visitors as to how positive it was, but for residents to realize that, wow, we are so lucky to live in such a beautiful place that people choose to go out of their way to come visit. And if we can be part of giving them a warm welcome when they get here and just being part of that experience, it benefits us all.
Heather Pelham, the Commissioner of the Vermont Department of Tourism and Marketing, thanks for being with us on NBC5 In Depth.
Thank you for having me.